So as we've explained how to manage users, and now we're showing you on this slide what a good ICB user roles look like. So when we say good, there's a slide coming up soon that'll explain why it's important that we have the user roles. But what this is showing you is all the user roles that we need to be able to function within the system. So as we said, 80% of our services are now transformed, and 80% of our services are using PCSE Online. So from the practices, they're using PCSE Online to submit transactions, and then some of those transactions will come up to the ICB to be approved. And these are the roles that we need in order to approve those transactions that are being submitted by practices. So for performers list, we need a PL, Authority User Administrator. Now the user administrator adds the roles that we've just shown, so that only the user administrator can give out roles, only the user administrator can bring in new people into the ICB, only the administrator can deactivate a new person. The roles that the PL Authority User Administrator can give out are the PL Approver role. Now you need that role in order to approve performer management changes as they come in, that is sent from performers. They submit a performer management change. If it's a partnered, a principal performer, that will come up to the ICB to be approved. The only person who can give that role out to anyone in the ICB is somebody with the role PL Authority User Administrator. I will mention at this point that you can have 4 of each user administrator within the ICB. So you could have 4 PL Authority User Administrators who can assign any number of PL approvers out, any number of users within the ICB. The Authority User Administrator can also make another user an Authority User Administrator. And then we've got GPP, so GP Payments and Pensions. So GPP User Manager is the exact same. That's the only person who can add the GP Payments and Pensions roles to other users within the ICB. They can deactivate users within the ICB. In order to become a GPP User Manager, you've either got to be assigned the role of an existing GPP User Manager, or we have a form that needs to be completed and signed by the Caldecott Guardian in order to for us at PCSE to assign you the user manager role. The reason we have to fill in that form is because this particular GPP, any role with the title GPP gives you access to financial information. So we follow it in the same way that we did for Open Exeter, and we ask for the same approvals that we did for Open Exeter. So, and then you've got the various different roles within the GPP user space. So GPP DCOM approver, GPP non-delegated com, GPP DCOM data entry, GPP DCOM read only, which is R/O, and GPP DCOM solo and locum admin. And then you've got the CSU, which is for outsourced work. So we talk a little bit more about the roles in a second, so I won't go through too much on there. But this slide, it's important to understand, why do we have roles in PCSE Online and how do they work? So the roles aren't simply to give you access to approve or go through something within the system. The roles are also very important to the workflow and to getting something processed from end to end. So the example we've given here is a performer submitting a performer management change. So a performer management change could be going from practice to practice. So a performer moving from one practice to another practice. So the first bit says what action is being taken. We're submitting a performer management change. What is the status of the action? So once the action comes into us, as the performer submits that performer management change, it will be the status for the performer management change, which shows proposed. And that person who's submitting that is the performer. That's the role that they've got in PCSE Online. Once they submit it, it comes to us at PCSE, and we then allocate the work out to one of our case officers. And at that moment, an approval is sent out to the CCG and to the practice. Now, it's important to note it only goes to the CCG if it is a principled performer. So at that point, it starts with a person with the role PL Practice Manager, and that is somebody sat within the practice who has the role PL Practice Manager. When they approve it, a salaried GP's status will go from proposed to current, but a principal GP status will stay at proposed, and that's because a principal GP needs the extra approval from the CCG. And that's when we move on to the next role that's required, which is a PL Approver CCG. And that's when it had come up to the ICB to say, this is where we need you to approve that this principal performer has moved from one practice to another. And the moment it's approved by the ICB, the status of the performer's assignment change goes to current. So it's a small demo to show you the importance of the roles. So when a performer submits it, it doesn't just go through a process of here is my assignment, it's current, it's now proposed. It's proposed and now it's current. It goes from role to role to role. So it starts with a performer, goes to a PL practice manager, goes to a PL approved CCG or ICB, as it will be in future. And only by ticking through those roles can we get that transaction approved. So if we have no one in the PL practice manager role at practice, the transaction will get stuck with the practice. And the same applies if we have no one with the role PL approver at the ICB, it will get stuck with the ICB, and then the performer's transaction can't progress. So roles are really, really important in using PCSE Online effectively and being able to progress transactions effectively. So it's a simple, if you go in and you can't see something, if there's something you're expecting to be able to do and you can't see it, it means that you haven't got the right roles in order to be able to approve it, and you'd need to speak to your user manager, or if you haven't got a user manager, PCSE, and we'd be able to allocate you the correct roles. Thanks, Ryan.
Oh no, V, thank you so much for going through all that. I really appreciate it. Right, 2 seconds then, let me take over the feed. See if it's coming on. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, again, V, thank you very much for going through all that. Really appreciate it. So the next part of this then is looking a little bit more in detail at the different permissions that are available. And I know we've already touched on these, and I don't think it's appropriate to really read them all out in full, because we'll be here forever. But what I will do after the session is I've already sent you the link to the user management guide where you'll see all of these roles and permissions detailed in that document. But I've seen a couple of questions pop up as well, just asking for these slides to be sent out. So once this session's over and I've accumulated all the different attendees, or all you guys that are on this session, I'll make sure that you've all got a copy of these slides, just so yeah, you can go through whatever content is discussed. You will all also have access to a recording of the session. So if there's anything you do want to reflect on, or if you want to go over any of that good stuff that V's just been going through, you're more than welcome to. But here, as it mentions, the GPP user management, this is effectively the role who will control all the other users within your organization. Not only can they create the new users that join your organization, like from scratch if they need the access, it's really important as well that they're managing what permissions that they've got. You may actually be quite familiar with what different permissions exist in PCSE Online, but just know with this change from Commissioner CCG to ICBs, those roles are going to look slightly different. The actions that you can perform within that role will be exactly the same. That won't change. And just to re-emphasize another point as well, and I know it's been mentioned a few times, it's just really understanding the responsibility that you do have with these roles, particularly if you have got a user that is going to leave your organization. We can't emphasize it enough how important, imperative it is that you do actually manage that user's access if they leave, and deactivate them and take them off the system. If they are moving to another organization, the COM user manager there in that organization will be able to set them up, and they'll be only to see what's applicable or what's necessary for that organization as well. But again, if we look at some of these roles, we can see like this DCOM approver role, they can view the standard claims that are submitted to you. They get the final approval as well of standard claims. So with the claims process, there's like a 2-tier approval. They can view practice statements, view GSUM opt-out statuses, view practice QOF data, view practice adjustments. And same with the data entry role here. They've got a lot of those same permissions that are slightly changed. So it's the first line of approval for those standard water rate claims, just as an example that may come through. And yeah, it all depends on what action it is that you really need that needs to be signed to you by that user manager. You know, if you need to view practice statements in your role, you need this DCOM RO role. If you're looking at solo and locum admin, this is the permission that you do need to actually be able to do that. The reason I'm going over this is I just want you to be aware that if you're trying to do a certain action in PCSE online and you find that you're not able to view X, Y, Z for whatever reason, this is one of the first things that you should really be checking is what permissions have you actually got assigned to yourself. Have that conversation with the user manager so they can check your details. And well, I imagine we're going to get a few more questions about these roles and permissions, so we'll circle back to it during the Q&A. But one of the last things I do want to show you is just as part of this ICB change from early in the 1st of July, when this actually comes into play, we've created an Icb Resort Hub for you, which has not been published yet, but I will make sure you all get the link to this. Now, what it will do, it's been created solely for you guys. If you need any support, any direction, or just insight into the other services that we do have available, go onto this link. It'll give you information about PCSE, who we are, what we do, as I talked about at the beginning, information and processes as well for each service line. So this session is very much about managing users. We have got a few more webinars coming up as well over the course of this week and next week. So some of you may be attending that, some of you may not, depending on what actions you're going to be doing. But through this site, you'll be able to get a lot of information just to give you that bit of additional support. You'll get access to instructional videos. Like I said, the guides, as an example, the one that I posted in the chat earlier for user management, where to get further help, and there'll be really handy FAQs for you as well. So I can't emphasize it enough. If there is anything you want a bit more insight into, this will be your nexus, really. It'll take you across the PCSE website and link you to any content that you really need. So I'm just going to go back then now to the chat, and V, I think it'd be a good time now just to actually start doing a little bit of Q&A. So I can see we've got a few questions that have actually come up. Are there any particular points that you're wanting to have a look at, Annie, here?
Yeah, I've just been working through them. So let's start going through some of the questions that we've got published on here. So one of the questions says, when using the portal, if you have any question, if something not working correctly, how do we resolve this? Waiting 30 days, result from an online inquiry, it can affect payments. So when you're using PCSE Online, we've got several services within the system that you can access. Now, we appreciate that sometimes if you use a search functionality within PCSE Online, it's quite difficult to pinpoint to where exactly you need to get to. So we have got within the website. In fact, Ryan, can I just share my screen for a second? Thank you. I'll show you within the website what we can see. So within the website, if you go, everything's about 3 clicks away within the website. So when I say about 3 clicks away, that's because sometimes it might be 4 clicks and sometimes it might be 2. But rather than using the search functionality, we use services and then let's say GP payments, because that's specifically what the question was regarding. Then if we scroll down, you can see that each section's regarding who you are. So if it's a practice, you could click there, and for commissioners, you would click here. And then it should be able to tell you everything's for the different thing that you need to do. So like I said, about 3 clicks away. So it'd be services, payments, and then commissioners. And then you go in and it should be able to give you information about how you do certain things. Now, what I want to be really clear on here is these guides are they're quite happy path guides. So they are saying this is how to do it. But to be honest, sometimes some of the questions we get in are regarding how to do it. And so we've recently just started demoing this part of the website to make it clear to people how easy it is to find, because I know that if you search up here and you typed in payments, you might get a lot of results that aren't necessarily relevant to what you wanted to do. So they will explain what you need to look at. So for example, if we looked at manage monthly payments, you get a guide there that would tell you exactly what you need to do. Now, we have had some issues with some of our guides recently, but that should be fixed now. So just wait for that to come up, and then you can go through it and it would explain to you what you need to do for each one. In terms of the timescales to respond to things, unfortunately, I can't answer that in this session because this session is on user management, but I can certainly address it to the relevant department. But hopefully the user guys will give you an example of what needs to do, what it is you're looking at on the screens. They've got helpful hints and tips there all the way through it. And sometimes that's what's important when we're looking at looking through the website to try and understand what it is we're looking at. I do get it's quite difficult if you're trying to do something for the first time and you're going through it. Not only are you sure if there's an issue with it, but you're also not sure where you're looking at. So use the website, go to services, select the service you want to transact on, then select who you are, and it will take you to some useful guides.
Awesome, Paul. Thanks, V. Right, do we have any other questions that we're wanting to look at right now?
Yeah. So we've got a couple more in here that I'll just go through because we've certainly got some time. So when reactivating, it sometimes will not let you and ask for the phone numbers, but will not let you add phone numbers into the relevant boxes. Now, it is something on the system, and it's something we're trying to get changed, to be honest. It does ask you for a phone number, and you do need to add a phone number in order to be able to progress. Now, you should be able to edit the phone number. You should the phone number shouldn't be grayed out for you as a user manager. You should be able to add 0 into it. If you can add the 0 into it, you don't have to put a phone number. Usually, what we do in PCSE, if that happens, we just add a 0 into it, and it doesn't need any specific number of digits. It just needs a 0. There's 2 options if it's not letting you, if it's graying that out, and I'm going to look into that today to find out if that is, and when we publish these questions, I will give you a formal answer on that. 2 ways that we can fix it though. Number 1, you can ask the user to go into their account, and again, I'm going to share my screen again because it's easier sometimes to show you. So if I share my screen and go back to login, so as I log in, I'll select my same organisation and continue. So you can manage, as a user, you can manage your own details in settings. So settings, my details, and you can see there I can edit my phone number. So I could add anything into this. So you could ask the user, the end user, to do that. Alternatively, you could contact us at PCSE and we can add certain roles on for you. What I would say is we have got the user registration teams. Obviously, always quicker to do it yourself, but you could also ask all your users to make sure that they've got at least a 0 in their phone numbers, and that will always allow you to progress forward. So you can see there, I can't change my name. I could change my username, my email address. I could as the user, I could change my telephone numbers, but I can't change anything else. And yeah, you would then be allowed to go in and transact. So if I go into here now and if I just pull myself up so I can just see what you're saying about the telephone numbers, I'll just choose any, doesn't matter. Yeah, I can see that is grayed out. So as I say, ask the user to ask the end user to add the phone numbers in themselves, or you could contact us, but it will take longer to contact PCSE to add roles onto a user. So I hope that's answered that. So we've got another question here. I've tried to write to user before, however, the system requires entry phone number. Sorry, we've just done that. Are there any plans for a live chat function? It's a really good question. And so at the moment, there are no plans, but it is something that we're very much keen to progress and to try and get some traction on. So especially for user management. So we are putting a business case together to try and get this. So just to give you some statistics within user management, and aside from the CCGs, obviously and the ICBs, sorry, we also service the entire of PCSE. And as I said, 100% of our users are in PCSE online now, so it's no small number. And we're still trying to get people to understand the importance of user management and the importance of that on transactions, and certainly keeping our data secure. So the average timescale for a repeat in our user management line is 24 hours. So it's about 2 days to 24 hours. People trying to get into the system and want to transact with the system, if they have to wait any longer than that, it can take some time. They start to repeat, they just want to do the transaction. So we recognise that a live chat where somebody can go, I've got an issue and we can come straight back, would be much better for us. So we are trying to progress it through. We do, on average, we try and answer all queries within, we certainly get back to people within 2 days. The maximum time it should take for any user management query is 5 days. And that is only because sometimes we have to and fro with the customer about getting a form signed correctly or getting the right permissions on the form. So that's why it can take a little bit longer, and apologies if you've experienced a delay with that. Sometimes the form can be, we've got certain things that we need to check when we receive a form back in order to make sure but it should be 2 days for us to do it. However, the more we can encourage user management with our customers, the fewer queries that we'll get in, the quicker that will be. In terms of web chat, we do recognise that it's a functionality that would really benefit the entire user management suite, and something that we'll hopefully be able to do in future. Oh, sorry, Ryan, you've answered, and I thought we were talking about the other one. So I've got a question here from Susan. At the moment, I'm responsible for approving contract changes for 10 CCGs. Will my permission need to change before we move to the ICB? So it's a really good question for the ICBs. Every permission that you've got now will move with you to your new ICB. It was something we were very keen to make sure that happened as part of the ICB change. So those 10 CCGs that you've got, dependent on where they merge, so as in the 10 CCGs, if they're going, 5 of them are going to become one ICB and 5 are going to become a different ICB, you will end up with permissions at both ICBs. I hope that makes sense. But basically, if all 10 are going to become one ICB, then you will just end up with the approval permissions at the one ICB. But whatever roles you've got now will go with you to the new ICB. So a question here, our email addresses are changing from NHS Mail to a local tenant at ICB. How do we change our users' email addresses associated to the users? Doesn't appear we can do it. That is a really good question. And what I'm going to say to you is I'm going to take that away and I'm going to find out. I can tell you how to change your user's email address. I think I've just shown that functionality through the system. However, if this is part of the actual project change, and if that will change at the time of the project, it'd be good for us to understand it, whether we'd be making any changes there to users or whether we'd expect users to make the changes. So Ryan, are we going to publish these questions later?
Yeah, so what I'll do, as I mentioned earlier as well, once this recording's finished and been edited, we'll get in touch with you. We'll say make sure you've got the links to the recording that's available. So if there's something you want to reflect on or look at something that was discussed during this session, you'll have access to that. But yeah, all the questions will be downloaded. So I hope you can appreciate there's certain questions that we're not able to answer on this session. But if there is something that you have posted and need an answer to, we will get every question answered and we'll send you a list out of everything that's been posted. I'm just posting something now as well. So this session focuses primarily on user management. So if, for example, you've got specific process questions and you want, more information around GP payments or the performalist actions that we talked about earlier, please just feel free to sign up to one of those other webinars as well. We're more than happy to have you. And like I said, we'll be going a lot more in depth with the different processes that can be managed through PCSE Online. Cool. So again, V, thank you for going through those. I will ask you just at the minute though, are there any other questions that you were looking to answer right now?
There's nothing else, no, that we're looking to answer right now.
Cool. Right, guys, what I will say then, we'll leave it there. Thank you to everybody who's taken the time out to join this session. As I mentioned, we will be in touch with you very shortly with the recording to this session and the answers to all the questions that's been published, whether they've been answered or not during this session. But I hope you found it useful. Like I said, I'm just posting now a link. This will take you through to the next session that we'll be holding. This is all about PCSE Online self-serve processes. So in this session, we'll be looking at Performalist, we'll be looking at GP payments, GP pensions, and I'm sure there's other parts of PCSE Online that we will be discussing. But I think just for now, we'll leave it there. And again, thank you all for joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.